Hey, I wanted to do another short video talking through some of the things that we see in another poem, in this case, Formal Application by Donald W. Baker. If you want to skip past my reading of it, use the timestamp in the description below. Formal Application by Donald W. Baker. The poets apparently want to rejoin the human race. Time. I shall begin by learning to throw the knife, first at trees, until it sticks in the trunk and quivers every time. Next, from a chair using only wrist and fingers, at a thing on the ground, a fresh anthill or a fallen leaf. Then at a moving object, perhaps a pie plate swinging on twine, until I pot it at least twice in 3 tries. Meanwhile, I shall be teaching the birds that the skinny fellow in sneakers is a source of suet and breadcrumbs. First, putting them on a shingle nailed to a pine tree. Next, scattering them on the needles, closer and closer to my seat, until the proper bird, a towhee, I think, in black and rust and gray, takes tossed crumbs 6 feet away. Finally, I shall coordinate conditioned reflex and functional form and qualify as modern man. You see the splash of blood and feathers and the blade pinning it to the tree? It's called an Audubon crucifix. The phrase has a pleasing, even pious connotation like albeit mocked free, Molotov cocktail, and Enola gay. All right, now on one hand, this is one of those poems that's pretty easy to read, but a lot of times when people read it the first time, they're like, what in the world did I just read? I mean, they get that it's a guy going through and killing a bird, but what's the point? And then what's going on with this thing at the end about crucifixes and strange phrases in other languages and stuff like that? All right, the poem begins with a quote from Time magazine. The poets apparently want to rejoin the human race. If you remember from a vocabulary, we call this an epigraph, so it's like a quote or something that kind of precedes the text. So this is both part of the poem, but also kind of not part of the poem. And what it does is it establishes the context. What this poem actually is a rebuttal against a Time magazine article which made a snarky comment about poets not even really being people, and made this comment that maybe poets are finally trying to become human again. You notice, remember the title, right? Formal application. So what Baker is saying here is, this is my application to rejoin and become part of the human race. So this is what he sees as being the way in which you become part of the human race. So in these first stanzas here, we have him practicing his skills and honing these skills. And what's the purpose of the skill is to destroy and to kill, right? He's learning to throw these knives. And at the same time, while he's learning the skill of throwing these knives, he's teaching the birds to trust him and that he's a person of safety and something that will take care of them and something that they can look to for peace. But truthfully, he brings death. A pretty important stanza is this one right here. Finally, I shall coordinate conditioned reflex and functional form and qualify as modern man. So what is it that qualifies him to be a modern man? It is this conditioned reflex of killing and perfect fluid functional form. He's essentially saying that humans are expert killers. It's what we do. And then here he's going to make a biblical allusion, right? Splash of blood and feathers at the blade pinning it to the tree. So he's creating this image of destruction and death and blood and gruesomeness. And he calls it an Audubon crucifix. Audubon having to do with birds, crucifix being a Christian allusion to the death of Jesus Christ on the cross. So it's a little bit of a shot at Christianity and of the Western culture that really stemmed from a lot of the Christian teaching. And so he's kind of insinuating even here that even within your religion, that is the foundation for much of your society, at its core, we have this violent, gross, disgusting death. And then here, right, the phrase has a pleasing, even pious connotations. And so then he's going to refer to some other things. And if you didn't take time to look these up, this first phrase is German, and it was actually on the gates at Auschwitz. Molotov cocktail is a device that people use to basically create handmade explosive devices and burning devices. And Enola Gay is the name of the plane that dropped the first atomic bomb. So these are all references to the ingenuity and destructive nature of the human race.